Welcome to the program. Today I'll talk about the 1 repetition maximum. Find out what it is, why it's important, how to calculate it, including an example, and how to predict exercise intensity so you can train effectively and maximize your performance potential. The 1 repetition maximum is the maximum resistance you can lift once for free weight exercises of up to 10 repetitions. The 1 repetition maximum is essential for effective exercise programming so you can work out at proper intensities needed to cause various training adaptations and use progressions to develop your performance potential. You basically perform a compound lift such as the back squat to predict the 1 RM because a free weight compound exercise identifies the stabilizer and prime mover relationship. This relationship is important for maximum performance because athletes are only as strong as their weakest link. For example, if you squat 250 pounds using a Smith machine, then the 250 pounds will not translate into the back squat because the stabilizers will fatigue and the force needed to lift the resistance of the legs cannot be transferred effectively. In other words, athletes often will not have the stabilizer strength, which is the connecting factor between prime mover strength and energy transfer in force application. What does that mean? That means that there might be an athlete that can do heavy squat or bench presses, but they don't perform as well on the court as the athlete that can do power cleans very well. Therefore, the total force production, meaning how strong the athlete is less important with respect to performance than how well the athlete can manage his or her body weight. Okay. In order to calculate your 1 RM and exercise intensities, you need to follow a 7-step process. First, perform a warm-up to get the musculature ready for maximum performance. Then, choose a compound lift like the squat or bench press, for example. Third, choose a bit more weight than you can lift for 8 repetitions. Next, you want to have a partner or spotter so that nothing happens to you once you reach exhaustion. Now perform as many repetitions as possible. After that, you record the total resistance and number of repetitions. Now, this is important. If the number of total repetitions is greater than 10, then increase the total resistance, rest 3 minutes and do it again. Finally, use the 3% formula to calculate your 1 RM. The 3% formula to calculate the 1 repetition maximum is 0.03 times number of repetitions plus 1 times weight used in pounds. Here's an example. Let's assume we have an athlete that can lift 175 pounds for 6 repetitions doing the back squat. What is the athlete's 1 RM? So let's take the 3% formula and plug in the values. Therefore, we have 0.03 times 6 plus 1 times 175 pounds, which is 1.18 times 175 pounds, and that equals 206.5 pounds. Therefore, the athlete would be using 205 pounds for the 1 RM because we cannot put 206.5 pounds onto the bar. Now we can calculate exercise intensities. If you want to perform a squat with 70% of your 1 RM, then simply multiply your 1 RM by 0.7 to get the proper intensity. With respect to the previous example, the athlete's 1 RM is 206.5 pounds for the back squat. Therefore, multiply 206.5 pounds by 0.7 to calculate exercise intensity at 70% of 1 RM, which equals 144.55 pounds. Since you cannot put 144.55 pounds onto the bar, use 145 pounds instead. Well, that's it again for today's episode. As usual, opinions differ. What's your point of view? Let us know below in the comment section. A brand new episode will be available next Sunday. So make sure you don't miss it and subscribe. In the meantime, I recommend you watch some of the previous episodes. You should really watch them all. If you like what you saw, tell your friends. I'm sure they will appreciate it. I'm Philipp Halfmann. Thank you for watching and auf Wiedersehen. Tennis Conditioning TV episodes are licensed under Creative Commons. You are welcome to link or embed these videos, forward them to others, and share these ideas with people you know. Brought to you by Advanced Concepts of Strength and Conditioning for Tennis. Available at tennisconditioningbook.com. Music by Dan O at danosongs.com.